Hello, everyone. It has been a while. So, welcome to a different type of play with myself, Mandi, also known as the Board Gaming Pinup Girl.
And I'm Michael, known as Pollum.
And we have a special guest who, well, may seem familiar. We're here with...
Hi, I'm Susan, also Ripped Punzel.
There you go. So thanks for joining us. So today we are going to be taking a look at the game Detective. Wait, let me get it. Be very dramatic. Detective, a modern crime board game. Okay, I think that I made it sound ominous enough. So it's a game by Ignacy Trzewiczek, and I'm going to give this a go, so let's see how well I do here. So the game story is by Przemysław Reimer, Jakub Dragon Lepot, and it's published by Portal Games. Yeah. So for whoever's watching, if I mispronounce your name next time we meet in person, you can tell me how to do it better. So I'm going to let Michael take it away.
Sure. Yeah, so this will be a little different from our usual teach and play style because we can't show too much. What we're going to do basically is at the start we'll have a spoiler-free introduction in terms of how the game is going to flow. I'll give a general breakdown of how to set up and how the game will proceed from there. But then we will let you know when the spoilers are going to start because we are going to be playing through Case 2. We've already played Case 1 individually in 2 separate scenarios, but now we're coming together to start Case 2. This is all new to us, so we are going to be doing this on the fly. We will see. But we will let you know when the spoilers are going to start. And that will start with a video introduction that'll give a brief history of what happened in Case 1 as well, so you can get caught up story-wise and see where we're at. So,
before you start,
yes,
for those who have not seen one of our teach and plays before, like we said, we're doing a different format. We will be back to those hopefully within the next couple of months or so. Mm-hmm. So this is just, might do a few one-offs like this where we record some of the playthrough. It's not a full teach or play, but you get an idea of the game, and then we go back to our teach and play soon. So just so you know, this isn't our regular programming, and yes, it is normally live.
Yeah.
So just to give you a little taste of what we're doing for now, just so we missed everyone. So.
We have, yes. It has been way too long, and exactly. I'm hoping I get my place back soon so that we can get back to it. All right. So yes. Detective. So to set up, first thing you're going to have is your detective board, and this is going to have all the locations that you can visit. There are 5 locations listed there. I'll explain how those are going to work later on. But you put your board in front, and you're going to have different markers. So you've got a car representing your investigation team, or IT.
Vroom, vroom.
You have a clock, or a stopwatch, that represents time of day. That goes at 8 a.m. every day. Mm-hmm. And then you have a file marker that will start on day 1. So this is going to be tracking your days, your time, and the locations that you're at. And when you're taking your turns, you'll be spending time, and depending on the case that you're working on, you'll have a limited amount of time. So in the case of the first case, you had 3 days. Right? It was 3 days.
3 days,
you had to,
shorter.
4 days?
Was it 4?
4 days.
4 days.
Oh, you're
okay.
right. It was 4. Yeah.
And then this one I think I said was 6? Yeah.
Yep.
So we have to complete our investigations in 6 days and then go and answer the final questions. All right, so then each player is going to choose an investigator to play as. So for example, I'm going to play as Jack Coleman. And on the bottom, it gives a special ability and which token you get for playing that player. There are 5 investigators in the box. I will be playing Jack Coleman.
I'll be playing Julia Jacobson.
Ooh, and I will be the fantastic Chris Stone.
All right.
Yes.
And then any investigators that are not being used would get flipped over and become consultants. So on the back side, it then shows additional markers that you're going to get for basically not having that ability for that investigator. And you create your token pool from those tokens. So we've got 1 file folder, none for yours.
And I have the magnifying glass.
Yep. And then from our consultants, we've got 2 of the tech.
2 of the talkie-talkies.
And 2 of the talkie-talkies.
Very nice.
And these are going to give us various options as we play. For example, further questioning of a suspect, or hacking a computer, or various options like that. So these we won't need any further. And then we've got various markers here. We've got authority tokens that will be used for various things throughout that could give you additional options.
Respect my authority.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I had to do it.
Authority. Somebody was going to, for sure.
I thought it was going to be Susan for sure.
And then there are also stress tokens. These are not so good. These red ones are going to come up basically when you're working overtime.
Overtime.
So there's 8 hours in a day for working time, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And you can continue working beyond that, but for every hour you work beyond, you have to take one of those stress tokens. And the case will tell you what your stress limit is. If you hit that stress limit, your investigation ends immediately and you must go straight to the questioning. So you do not want to hit that stress limit. Let's see here, what else? Next up is logging into the Antera's database. So one of the cool things with this is that it's not just the items in the box that you're working with. You're also working with an online database that houses all the fingerprints and the various materials that you're finding as well, DNA. So I will switch over to that. So when you start off, I'm already logged in. You're going to pick the case that you are working with. So campaign 1. And you can see that we've already solved the first case. But if you were just coming in fresh, you'd select that first one. In the case of us, we are working on the second case. And it will give us this video that we get to watch that gives a quick synopsis of what happened in the first case. So it'll be a great reminder for us, but also a way to catch up for you watching. So you would log into the database. You will need to create an account in there, and that will save your progress as you're going through the various cases, which you will want to do because there's an overarching storyline to it. It's not just individual cases, they all come together with one common thread as well. So then next up is taking the corresponding deck. So they come with these bags for the 5 case decks, which is kind of cool. Looks like it's evidence bags.
Yeah.
So we are going to crack open the second case in a moment. But before I do that, we're going to read the case book. So at this point, I think this is basically where the spoilers are going to come in.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
That's a pretty simple overview of how it's going to flow. It's very free flowing. There's no turns in this game. We're working together, coming up to what we want to do, which steps we want to do. But that's it. So this is where the spoilers start. And like I said, this is new to all of us. So here we go. Case 2, The Soldier with a Heart of Gold. Introduction. In your hands, you have the second scenario of the campaign. This case is linked to the first and directly continues some of the plots you found there. We encourage you to use the notes made during the previous game and to take out all the cards that the team discovered in the first mission for quick reference of the most important facts and information collected beforehand. We do currently have those set aside, so I can grab those when we need them. The case of The Soldier with a Heart of Gold is more elaborate than the first. There are more plots and dependencies among the suspects. Again, we encourage you to take good notes and create mind maps. Discuss, consider all theories, and all possible scenarios. Good luck. So, plot cards. Log into the Antera's database, watch the video introduction to Case 2, then read all the plot cards collected for Case 2, starting with the lowest number, and work your way to the highest, then read the following introduction. So, we did earn a couple plot cards that came from the previous case. We weren't allowed to read them at the time, but we were finding threads for that overarching theory that I was talking about, and we were able to put them in there.
Previously on Detective, a modern crime board game. Nazi officer bribes American soldiers at Brenner Pass. War veteran found killed in his own house. The murder case was suspiciously closed. Case 2, The Soldier with a Heart of Gold.
All right, there we go. So those are things that we had already discovered in the past.
Okay, it's riveting. Woo, can't wait to see.
And you can see these are all the previously searched names that we had looked up in Case 1 and any files we had looked up, and we can continue to look up personal files, regular files, questioning, and then there's signatures, so you can find fingerprints, DNA samples, and materials that are discovered. So I will switch back to our overhead. All right, I'll switch over to the database every now and then just to show you how we're entering information. But now we're on to the case itself. Antera's headquarters, July 9th, 8:12 a.m. It took you a moment to discuss the recently completed investigation with Delaware. You also exchanged your observations with Jenny Robinson, the head of the 2nd Antares team, before you noticed it was already past 8 o'clock. It was time for the morning briefing. Hastily, you take your seats in the briefing room. The dynamics of this room always allow you to feel the moods of the particular departments. The IT specialists concentrate on their smartphones, waiting for the meeting to start and for something that concerns them. The heads of departments are discussing something in the corner in low voices. Administration and HR are munching on cookies, sipping coffee, and taking their places at the corners of the table. The agents, with dark circles under their eyes, sit as close as possible to the entrance, looking through papers. Finally, Delaware enters the room. He takes his place at the head of the table, puts down his notebook, turns up the light, and begins his presentation. Hello all. As you know, our main investigative group has recently completed the investigation of the man with a golden watch. He stops speaking for a second and looks at everyone gathered, as if half expecting someone to consider it a good joke. There are a few nervous smiles around the room. He continues, Everyone who was involved in this matter, myself included, think that there are a lot of holes in the story. On the screen behind him appear excerpts from Dawson's files, along with the evidence and testimonies collected. That's why I would like us to pursue the questions raised in Mr. Dawson's murder. The matter developed before our eyes like a spider's web. There are a lot of threads, but I would like us to focus on 2 in particular. We managed to establish that the Nazi criminal Kurt Blutholz was probably in the same place and time as Mr. Dawson during his deployment. This is the most likely explanation of how the watch came to the US, but we still do not know everything. The death of his colleague, the soldier, remains a mystery somehow related to the watch. The investigation of the murder was carried out hastily and quickly closed. We have reasons to believe that Dawson did not die at the hands of Henry Giles, though maybe you are going to confirm the official report. Delaware falls silent, as if he forgot what he was going to say next. He reaches for his green notebook and looks through several pages. So, start by checking the files from Marcus Owen's trial and the transcripts of witness interviews. Giles did not leave many documents, for obvious reasons. I do not know if these 2 cases are connected in any way. At first glance, they are not, but we can't rule out anything at this stage. Many of you may be wondering why we're digging up the past instead of dealing with more urgent matters. Let me explain. Soon there will be an audit of Antares, which aims to provide us with a few additional security certificates necessary for the optimal operation of the system. Without them, I'm afraid we will not be able to get involved with exciting and important cases worthy of such an outstanding group of specialists we have gathered here. Solving a case from the past looks good in the media and will certainly help us. Unfortunately, the upcoming audit will mean work will not be possible for a while, and afterwards, I expect a sudden increase in the demand for our services. So we have to close the case of Blutholz and Dawson within a few days. I believe you can do it. Thank you very much for coming. I would like to talk with some of the leading officers privately. So, preparing the case. We moved the time marker to 9 a.m. because we start our days at 8 a.m., but we just went through a meeting, so we're already at 9 a.m.
So I'm just going to, just because of the light. Yeah, there we go.
A reflection?
Yeah, just a little bit of a reflection.
The reason we do have a phone out is another resource is the internet. There are situations where we'll actually be given keywords that we're allowed to look up. We can use things like Google Maps to find information, real-world information, that would tie into the case. It's not absolutely necessary, but we've actually come across information that led us down a path that we would have had to dig deeper in the game first to be able to figure that stuff out. So kind of cool that you get that extra information from real-world sources. All right, we got 4 authority tokens added to the pool.
Alrighty.
And special rules. If you do not have the 125 plot card, we should read this, but we do have plot 125.
No,
we don't?
We don't, yeah.
Right, we do have 133. So
and
we'll
124.
break into the case 2.
Yeah, a little
Case in.
nug to get out.
There we go. So, from the previous case, we did get 2 plot cards added. 124 and 133. We'll get to read those in a moment. This deck is basically the various things that we're going to get to do. You will not see all the cards when you play through a case, nor are you allowed to go back and read the cards after the case, because you only get to keep the information that you earned throughout the case. So you are correct. We do not have plot 125, so I will continue reading. Richard Delaware goes to his office, and you follow him, wondering what other orders he has for you. It turns out that it is about the exhumation of Horatio Dawson's body. I came to the conclusion that without the exhumation of the body, we will not be able to properly bring this matter to an end. That is why I would like to ask you to go and obtain the necessary permits in the court. Put things in order, so to speak, and then get thorough research in the laboratory. Obtaining a court permit wasn't very difficult, but it required time. The judge issuing the permit asked detailed questions about the procedure. He probably served in the army himself, and he wasn't keen on digging up a veteran. Anyway, after filling out a ton of documents, the date of exhumation was set. Move the time marker to 10 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
Because we had not found that plot card in our first playthrough, we then had to spend time to earn that information.
Oh boy.
Now, if you do not have plot card 133, which we do, so we've already got this information, we do not have to suffer the consequences therein, which in this case would be discarding authority tokens and then drawing the necessary cards from the deck. We already have that information, so that's okay. All right, goal of the case. Discover who killed Horatio Dawson and collect the evidence. Time limits. Delaware expects a full report on his desk within 6 days. So as I said, case 1, we had 4 days. This one we have 6, but it did already say it's a little more complex. And the stress limit for this case is 7, which was the same limit in case 1. So more days, not an increase in the stress limit. So if we hit 7 on day 3, case is done right there, and we have to go to answering the questions, which would not be a good thing. So now we go on to further leads. This is where we basically start our breadcrumb trails, if you will. So we've got files from the trial of Marcus Owens, and Susan has already transcribed these all to our notes so that we don't have to keep looking between notes and the book. And then it gives us a card number and the location where that card is. So in this case, that would be card number 201 at the courthouse. And all of those cards in the case are numbered. In this case, it's case 2, so they're the 200 series, and then they're in numerical order from 1 to 235, because every case has 35 cards in it. The location requires us to actually move if we're not there already. So we always start every day, unless the story says otherwise, at the headquarters. You always punch in the clock, if you will, and at 8 a.m. But if we wanted to, say, research that one, we would have to go to the courthouse, and every time you move somewhere, that's 1 hour of time, and then the card itself will tell you how much time you've spent researching whatever it is you're looking for. So it could be 2 hours, could be 4 hours of time spent doing that. So ideally, when you're in one location, you try and get as much resolved at that location as possible, so you're a little more efficient. Okay, next we have record of the witnesses' interviews from the hearing, number 202 at the courthouse, the exhumation of Horatio Dawson, 203 field work, and then from the previous case we have police files regarding the murder of Horatio Dawson, file 1, which we've already found, and Slater's notes 130, 132, and 127, which we also have. So I'm going to grab those now. Okay, so these are all the cards leading up to what's the last one? 135. We've already announced spoilers. I'm going to say it once more. Spoilers! So this is one of the cards from the first case, and I'm going to show you how a card breaks down. There are various color-coded cards depending on the location that they're in. So for example, this is fieldwork, which is purple color because the fieldwork is purple. And then in the top right corner of the card is the time spent. So in this case, for us to get this card, we had spent 3 hours at the fieldwork location to get it. The bottom of the card then shows you further leads or things that you need to do. So in that bold text, we had to read one of the pieces of data in the database. We had to add a stress token to the token pool and add a plot card to case 2. So this is something that fed into getting one of these plot cards. And then the very bottom of the card, it shows one of the tokens. In this case, we can further question somebody. So Linda Evans, we were able to question her further. Now, we chose not to because we have only looked at side A. We have that written down. So in that case, it actually stays on the right side. Right side of the board. Anything that you have access to both sides, because you did, in this case it's called Dig Deeper, you're allowed to put that on the left side, so you know everything on the left side of the board. You're allowed to look at both sides at any point. And then anything that is unresolved would go down here. All right. I think now we go on to reading these plot cards. All right?
All right.
So we've got lowest numbered first. In the morning, immediately after reaching Antares, you decide to visit Delaware's office. Oh, hello. We have a briefing in half an hour. Is everything all right? Asks the boss, pushing aside a file and invited you in. Boss, there are a lot of shortcomings in Dawson's murder case. The circumstances of death are unclear. You stop for a moment and muster the courage. Boss, damn it, nothing is adding up. A professional soldier, in the prime of his life, tossed down the stairs by a junkie from a pawn shop? It doesn't fit. Here is my report. You give him the file. All of my concerns are inside. I am asking for permission to get a closer look at the case. I can do it after hours. Delaware opens the folder and diligently looks through the documents. After a second, he opens his green notebook and, it seems, compares the contents of your report with his notes. Finally, he puts away his glasses with a studied movement and looks at you carefully. You have the impression that he is smiling gently. Finally, as if reluctantly, he speaks up. His voice is quiet, yet he is clearly heard. I agree with this opinion. A lot of other traces, which you did not have access to, are also contradictory. That's what I wanted to discuss at today's briefing. Finding Dawson's murderer is your new case. I will give more details at the meeting in half an hour. I am glad that you have come to the same conclusions on your own. Well done. Keep it up. Add 2 authority to the token pool.
All
Good
right.
start.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
nice. All right, so that is just the one side. Then, block card 133. So again, these are the cards that we had earned from the first case. Slater's notes contain a lot of information, but they are chaotically scattered. There are not many of them, but that was part of the charm. They are supposed to make you remember things. You take them home and spend a good portion of the night on them. You are trying to determine what these names and surnames mean. Brenner is the pass on the Italian-Austrian border. Horatio Dawson served in the 7th Army, which secured his place in 45. Along with him, that Nicktorn guy also served in the 7th, but didn't return from the war. Slater also mentions Buckman in his notes, which suggests that these soldiers had some connections to him. You'll need to look more closely at this. The most suspicious thing here is this whole issue with Brown, their boss. Why did someone ask about him? Does it have something to do with the events on the Brenner Pass? Or maybe after the war? And then at the bottom of that card, it gives us further leads. That yellow tag at the bottom shows that these are further leads. So we can learn more about Nick Torn, number 210 headquarters, and we can learn more about Brown, number 227 headquarters. And that has to do with those notes that we found, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And go.
I know, it's a lot of information to take in.
All right. Maybe before we start, actually, we'll cover the abilities.
Sure.
Yeah. So one of the actions that you can take once per day is called write a report. It takes an hour to do it, so you do spend an hour of your time, but it allows you to take an authority token. Now, in the case of Jack Coleman, who I'm playing, it gives us the ability to write a report, still just once a day, but we get 2 tokens. And these will come in handy later. So it's a way to get more of those tokens in play.
Julia Jacobson's ability is to spend 1 authority to change 1 skill token of any type from the pool into 1 Joker token.
Oh, that's pretty good, actually. And Chris Stone gets to spend 1 authority and a skill token to dig deeper on a lead card that has already been resolved.
So normally what happens is the dig deeper option, as I said, is the option at the bottom that uses one of the tokens. So in this case, that's questioning Linda Evans. You can only dig deeper, usually, when that card is active. So you've read through everything, Then you decide, do we dig deeper or not? Because basically you're at this person's house and you're questioning them. Do you want to question further? If you say no, it goes over to the right side because you only have access to the A side of the card, and you're not allowed to revisit that because you said no, you've left, you've already gone elsewhere. So the ability that Mandi has actually lets us go back and dig deeper after the fact at the cost of some tokens, and that's where these would come into play, and the tokens that we have in our pool. All right, so bottom line is we're trying to find who actually murdered Horatio.
So we have 5 leads at this point in time. We can look at the files from the trial of Marcus Owens. That's at the courthouse.
Okay.
We can listen to the record of the witness interviews from the hearing, and that's at the courthouse as well. Attend the exhumation of Horatio Dawson, that's field work. And then there's 2 at HQ to learn about Nick Torn or Brown.
Oh boy. Like, I mean, we're already short on the day.
Yeah,
so
they say we've got 6 days.
And
No,
I
we've
know
got
going
5.5
to the
days.
different areas take more time depending on where you go.
Yeah.
Field work is not as bad. Headquarters is not bad. Courthouse, the lab, they can be a bit longer. Yeah. So do we want to maybe do the harder stuff on the other days, but is that going to help us go forward? So at headquarters, sorry, what do we get to do at headquarters?
That's to learn more about Nick Torn or Brown.
Yeah.
His
So Nick
army
Torn
buddies.
was this
Right,
guy.
that's the guy that didn't return.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember that from the first one. We were kind of like, okay. But maybe his story might have something to tell. I'm always worried these are going to be a waste of time. It's just something to distract you.
Yeah. Yeah, not everything will be valuable information.
Exactly.
But it will take you time to get it.
But the fact that he didn't return, I always get a little worried because it's like, okay, well, if he just died, well, then just say that. But the fact that it's not stated.
Yeah.
But what do you all think we should do?
Well, the courthouse is definitely going to be a case of efficiency with 2 different things we can do there.
But
Right.
that's probably going to be 2 or 3 hours
That's right.
each, which will take us into overtime the first day.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Maybe we kind of keep it to either field work or stay at headquarters.
Fieldwork generally is the longest.
Yeah.
In terms of breakdown of time.
Oh, I thought it was lab.
I think it said
Lab,
fieldwork.
okay, I
2
thought
to
it was
3
lab.
hours.
Lab is up to
for
4.
Or
is it?
yeah, fieldwork. It just said basically it's 2+.
2+,
It'll go
okay.
up from there.
I think
yeah,
lab is the
because
most,
you're
actually.
out in the field running
So maybe
around.
headquarters? I
So
mean, we can
we're already
try
here.
one.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
then if we're like, this isn't doing anything for us.
Sure.
Perfect.
We can,
So shall we look at Nick Torn, the one who didn't make it back? That's 210 HQ.
All right, 210. 210 over here. Yep. Would you like to?
sure.
All right.
This is my job.
All right.
This one. Woohoo! All right. So 210. Here we go. Slide that back up there. All right. So this is going to be 1 hour of time. So let me do
Okay.
that. Okay. As you log into the official military personnel files OMPF database to search for Nick Torn's data, Delaware enters the office. You all right, he asks, looking at your desktop on the screen covering your office wall. The number of folders, files, and database shortcuts is impressive. The case of the stolen watch from Poland has grown into a giant spreading web of interconnecting clues. Yes, we're on the right track, you say. I'm just checking out this Nick Torn guy. Everything points towards him being on Dawson's team, which would place him at that mountain pass along with Blutholz. You continue your search while Delaware observes. OMPF shows that 34 American soldiers with this name served in Europe during World War II. You download the list, filter by assignment, and look at your superior with a triumphant grin. In the 7th Army, there was only one. Joshua Nick Torn. After a few moments, his file is added to the Antares system. Then at the bottom it says read file at 210.
Okay.
And then if we use a token, specifically this one here,
Yep.
we can analyze reports on Nick Torn's death.
Okay. So the first thing is, do you follow any instructions at the end of the text that has been read? So in this case, I will flip back over to the database so you can see how this works. So we are reading a file, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
File.
So along the left, you've got personal files, questioning, and other. In this case, it's files. And then you enter in the number that it's referencing. So 210, do a search.
Okay.
And here we have the military files of one Joshua Bellagio Nicktorn. Got him marked as KIA, so killed in action.
It says killed in action.
It does.
Interesting.
U.S. Army conscript since 1943, 7th Army, 6th Infantry. He was a private.
Okay.
Buried at Military Cemetery in Innsbruck, Austria.
Okay.
His wife is Anna Nicktorn, and it's showing that as a clickable link. So that is something that we can look up for free within the database. It doesn't take any of our time to look that up. So I'll look that up in a second.
May I point out that there is a picture of an Anna in Horatio Dawson's, it was Michael Slater's notes. I don't know if that's related, but just putting it out
No,
there.
that's
Yep,
good.
and the name, that's right.
Wow.
It had come
Absolutely.
up.
Yeah.
Yep, good call. Okay, annotation. According to Colonel Samuel Brown's report,
Samuel Brown.
and
do I
he's
know
the
him?
one,
That's the
They had the fight with
The boss.
that's
Dawson.
the colonel that
boss, right? Yeah.
Horatio
Horatio assaulted
Yeah.
him.
assaulted
That's
him.
right.
Yeah. Okay. According to Colonel Samuel Brown's report, Private Nicktorn was killed during guard duty by sniper fire by armed German forces. The other guard, Corporal Coxon, did not suffer any injuries, and that's the other person that's in this
Right.
picture. So this gives us three further leads. Check Corporal Coxon in the military personnel database, number 209 HQ.
Okay, Corporal Coxon.
Yep,
Huh. This is very interesting.
in the military database, 209 HQ.
Yep,
Info about Anna Nicktorn,
yep.
number 220 HQ.
220.
And info about Colonel Samuel Brown, number 227 HQ.
I smell a cover-up.
I agree. Now, before we look into any of that, I can look up Anna Nicktorn here for free.
Sure.
So I'll
See,
select
a little
that.
background info.
Yeah.
Anna Briggs.
Anna Briggs now. Because he was KIA.
How do I know that name?
There was a Richard Briggs.
Richard Briggs.
Right.
There is a Briggs, I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a Briggs.
And the photo.
I'm just looking that up. That could very well
That
be
could
her.
be her. It looks like her.
Yeah.
So this is evidence that we had found
Yeah.
in the first case.
Right. Oh,
Okay.
it's
yeah, never mind.
Okay. And cause of death, leukemia. We figured she was a
Right.
cancer patient.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, we had thought
Okay.
that as well.
Okay. Additional data, known connections. Joshua Nicktorn, ex-husband. Rutger Briggs is her current husband.
Oh.
And Richard Briggs is her son.
Okay.
Rutger, R-U-T-G-E-R Briggs,
Rutger Briggs.
is her husband. Richard Briggs is her son. So if I go back to database, just so you can see how this works, here's all of the previously searched names in the order that we searched them. So majority of these are obviously from the first case when we played through it, and then we've also got files that we had looked up. Then there's also signatures. That's when you're looking at stuff like fingerprints, DNA samples, etc. So we'll flip back here. Okay. So was that the card resolved? So at this
Yep.
point,
So-
there's just the dig deeper option. If we want to
Correct.
do that now, we can. If not, usually you cannot do that
Right.
after the fact. But with
have my
Mandy's
option.
ability, we could at the expense of some tokens.
So do we think it's worth looking into it? I mean, I already think it's
What was
suspicious.
what were we looking up?
So analyze reports on Nick Torn's death. I mean, I don't know if it's worth it now to do it,
Yeah.
or do we wait? I'm not sure. Like, I mean, we do have my ability. I'm a little weary about using tokens very early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds sketchy, but I think you're right.
I don't
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
we should. Not yet. But what do you think? I will leave it as I.
No, I'm good with waiting.
Okay.
Because we do have your ability to go back if we find, no, we
Yeah.
do need some more information, then we can go back to it.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're
So
putting it
to use your ability, what's the cost?
So you spend one authority and a skill token. So authority and But do we have the one that turns to one?
We'd probably need
But we
that
need
skill
this.
token. Yeah, so one
Sorry,
authority
yes.
plus that.
Until I get
Okay.
some of the jokers.
Right.
Yeah. And I can get us 2 authority for
Yeah.
writing a report.
So we have a nice system here
Yeah.
that we can use.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'd say we're good for now.
We're
So
good
it
for now?
wasn't that.
So because we haven't actually we haven't done the dig deeper action for that card, it stays on the right side of the board. But with that ability, we can go back to it.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
So where do we want to go next? Well, we're at headquarters. There was another option at headquarters, if I'm not
There's
mistaken.
several more now, actually.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So maybe we'll just spend the day at HQ.
That's what I'm thinking.
Sounds
Get as
good.
much information as we can.
So Brown,
Okay. That's the colonel.
the colonel, yeah, at 227 HQ.
Yeah, maybe we can find out what happened with the assault.
Right.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
there's Coxon as well.
And I feel like and there's okay. I feel like the colonel is hiding something, but
Yeah.
I don't know if we go straight to him or
Is
is that
It's the same.
same?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's the same.
Yeah.
What do you think? Leave that up to you, or do you want to go to the friend or comrade he had?
I'm kind of curious what happened with that assault charge with
Yeah.
Horatio and the colonel.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a theory.
Oh,
Let's
see.
theories are already
Yeah.
brewing.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so
So-
card 227.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. 227.
Hmm.
227. There we are. Okay. All right. 3 hours on the clock. Wow.
All
That's intense. Well, this day is going to be quickly
Yeah.
over. Brown's files are restricted.
Oh.
The Anteri system bounces off databases like a ball off of a wall. On the main screen, notifications about access denied appeared one after another. All inquiries, every last one of them, denied. Damn it. You grab the phone and call the National Personnel Record Center in St. Louis to talk to an actual living person and find out what's what. Unfortunately, you also hit a wall there. You are wondering how to get to the core of it, where the gap is that you can use to squeeze in and get to Brown's file. The answer comes from an unlikely source. The secretary connects a conversation with the Department of Defense, and after a while, you hear the voice of General Henry Brown. I see here in the system that someone from Antares is looking for information about my father. Unfortunately, the data is restricted. I cannot give you access, but of course, we can informally talk about any issues that will not be covered by military secrets. You immediately straighten yourself in the chair and activate the recording of the conversation. Read questioning 227. But we do have a little flippy flip after with no cost associated.
Okay.
Nice.
So 227. I'll switch back here. Questioning, right? You said questioning.
Yes,
227?
questioning 227.
Okay. Conversation with General Henry Brown. My father, Samuel Jerome Brown, served in the 7th Army during World War II. In 1946, while stationed in occupied Germany, he was accused of fraud and corruption, as well as falsification of reports. Due to his exemplary service, he was expelled from the Army without charges. In 1949, he was rehabilitated with and his military rank was restored. He, however, gave up his service. He preferred to devote himself to working in the private sector. In 1952, he founded a logistics advisory company, Get Force, which cooperated with civilian and military aviation. In the same year, the company signed a legal service contract with Lexington, Virgil, and Bowl. He died in 1985 in a car accident caused by an unknown perpetrator. Too many car accidents.
I
for
know,
my
they just
liking.
seem so convenient.
And since when is there perpetrators in car accidents?
Right?
Weird.
For a long time, you sit in a chair with your phone in your hand, wondering what the heck just happened. General Brown said a lot about his father. He did not shy away from uncomfortable details. This perplexes you. Did he attempt to stop Antares from digging up his father's past? Did he give you some insignificant information so that you would stop looking? Or maybe he really didn't know anything else.
Huh.
Okay, so another person that died in a car accident.
There seems to be a lot. You were right on
Hmm.
that. Wow. So yes, we can now have the option of flipping.
That was a
Yep,
freebie,
yep.
right?
Yeah,
We
it was
get
a
that,
freebie.
yep.
All right. Something makes you feel you need to look more closely at Brown. In the end, you decide to search in relation to Horatio Dawson. After all, his files mention assaulting Brown.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that Horatio Dawson and Samuel Brown had more in common than first thought. Dawson ended his military career in 1955 when Brown hired him at Getforce. Brown needed employees who knew about logistics. Dawson worked for Brown for 6 years until 1961. You reach the financial data, which appears to show that he was fired and received a large severance payment. This allowed him to build a house and a flower shop. You also find a press release from April 12th, 1967.
Okay.
Interesting date. I'll get back to that in a bit.
Okay.
Flower shop.
During a veterans convention in Richmond, Horatio Dawson attacked Colonel Samuel Brown. The text quotes the witnesses of the incident who argue that during the incident, Dawson shouted something about bribery and blamed Brown for the death of a colleague in the unit. Soldiers quickly separated Brown and Dawson, and the latter was arrested by police. Colonel Brown had a bruised face and bled from his eyebrow, but he did not suffer any serious injuries. So we have a couple of further leads from this card, actually 4 of them.
Ooh,
Okay.
wow.
Do you want me to read them out?
Sure.
Okay, so
Thank you.
first we have info about Lexington, Virgil, and Bowl. Number 228 HQ. 228. Info about Getforce. Number 234 HQ. Additional info about Brown. This we can just look up because the name
Yeah.
at, we can look
Right,
that up
right.
anytime. So stuff like that in the database you're allowed to look up. So I'll look that up in a moment. Inquire further into Brown, number 224 HQ. So I'll go ahead and do the at Samuel Brown.
Yeah. Wasn't that what we were referred to earlier?
Quite possibly. Let me take a look.
Oh, from the So here we had read file 210.
Oh, that was 210.
That was
so-
210. Yeah.
So this will be more tombstone stuff,
Right.
I think. This is the dude with the weirdness associated with his date of death.
Oh yeah, there was
Right,
one
there
where
was
the
an
dates
anomaly.
were not.
Yeah.
They were a bit wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Previously a wrong date of death of July 19th, 1992. Error later corrected after the file was synchronized with the coroner's data.
85 to 92. That's a huge.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a 7-year gap. That's
Yeah.
a big mistake.
Oh
yeah.
yes, now I remember. Yes,
That's
There's a theory
weird.
about this one.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a little while since we played it.
Okay. So that is that card. So we'll have that on this side. We've
Yeah.
looked at both sides. These are all the 100 series. So we have access to all of these.
Yep.
These are the ones we've looked at before.
Now, looking here, we have 2 hours left
Mhm.
without going overtime.
Yeah.
So I don't think moving is really a
No.
good idea. at
No,
this
we're not going to go
point.
anywhere.
Okay, perfect. We're on the same page with that. Is there? I mean, there is a chance that we will go over.
Unless we just do some report writing. and
We
We
could
could
write
do
a
that.
report
Authority
and get
tokens.
to
Yeah.
authority.
And then
And
I
then
could
Gives us to start.
use that and get us some jokers for.
Well, for be able to flip some cards later. Yeah.
Because these abilities are available to you once per day. So
Yeah.
anytime you use an ability, there's these X tokens. You would put a token on it on your card showing that you've already used that ability for the day. When you start the next day, then you get to wipe these tokens. So now might be a good time to use those abilities
Right.
before they technically refresh.
But that gets us to 3, which leaves us an
Yeah.
hour left in the day.
So it's either we do something here, potentially go over by an hour,
Yeah.
or report right, but then we're kind of, I feel like we're wasting a
Short
bit of time.
ourselves, yeah.
So it's just what we're feeling comfortable with at this point, because it is only day 1.
Well, we're still at HQ and we haven't looked at Corporal Coxon.
Mm-hmm. Which is the one that we don't have much on, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect his record to be blocked like the Colonel's.
Right.
That might be a quicker search.
So should we trigger this for 1 hour and then do that?
Yeah, because we can't write reports in overtime, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
That's why-
concurred.
Yeah.
Okay.
So unless that's 2 hours and puts us to 4,
Right.
well, it would still go into overtime.
Yeah.
I think we should do this first.
Agreed.
So we will spend 1 hour to write a report, and that normally gets you 1 authority token, but with my ability being used, gets us 2.
Right, so we're using the hour here.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect.
And then did you want to flip one of those over to a wild?
Who would you like to change?
Really, it doesn't matter because it becomes wild,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, that's
something
right.
we have doubles of, so we could take one of those.
Perfect.
Gets us a wild, which is
Which
good.
is good. Okay.
So more flexibility throughout the investigation. All right. So 209,
209.
209
Nice.
HQ.
All right, here we go. There you are. Stick together with my fingers here. All right. So that is going to be 2 hours.
2
Okay.
hours. That's all
Yeah,
right.
not bad.
So that puts us into 1 hour of overtime.
Yeah, not bad.
Acceptable.
All right. You don't even consider trying to get through all the forms at the National Personnel Record Center in St. Louis. You pick up the phone and call them, trying to get to the files without using their horrible system. After a few minutes, you found out that they have no record of Coxon in the database. You're told that either they were missing or there was a database error. Apparently, there was a fire in 73, and many of the records were destroyed.
Oh, of course.
The lady on the other side of the phone is trying very hard to be helpful. She advises you to check out the official military personnel files and the Department of Veterans Affairs. There should be a copy of the file there. You thank her, hang up, and start browsing these databases. You manage to find records of 25 soldiers named Coxon who served during the Second World War. You filter these records by assignment, and after a long while, find the needle in the haystack. Only one Coxon served in the 7th Army. His first name is Jeremiah, and OMPF has his data card. Read file 209. And then just so you know, we do have a couple things on the bottom. Using one of the tokens, check out the rest of the soldiers in the team. And then there's a further lead. Learn more about Jeremiah Coxon at number 215 headquarters.
So right now we're reading file 209.
Yes.
Military files of one Jeremiah Coxon.
Well, that's an iron jaw if I ever saw one.
Right?
Yep.
Very movie star.
Chiseled. Blood type B, negative. From June 1943 to June 1945, U.S. Army conscript. 7th Army, 6th Infantry, so same group.
Right.
Rank at the time of discharge, corporal.
Okay.
Decorations, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal, and Order of Battle for Operation. So that first medal is the same as Dawson.
Yeah.
So Order of Battle for Operation Nordwind. We haven't heard of that
We
operation
haven't heard of
yet.
Nordwind.
Nordwind is new.
And that is not. Oh wait.
don't think-
so
can we look that
can
one
look
up?
Yes, we can look up Husky, which we have in
Which-
the past. We can look up Undertone Operation, which we have in the
yep.
past. Nordwind is a new one though.
Yeah.
So when it has that little Wi-Fi symbol and an underlined name, that's something you can look up on the internet for further information. So I think Undertone, was that Italy?
Yeah, one of them was Italy. One of them was, I think that was the one in Europe. Husky was something else.
Husky was Sicily?
Was it?
I'm trying to see if I can
Okay.
find it here.
So what do we have for Nordwind?
Nordwind was the last major German offensive of World War II on the Western Front. It began in the Alsace and Lorraine in southern Germany and northeastern France, and ended on the 2nd Jan 1945.
Excuse me.
So when we had looked up one of those operations during case 1, that's how we made the connection. So
Right.
the first case basically has you following this gold watch, and you're trying to figure out how it made its way to the States. It was stolen from a Polish museum, and we had figured out through some internet sleuthing that one of those operations was in Italy, and is when the watch was used for a safe passage for a German to
Right.
get out.
Yeah, the Operation Husky was in Sicily.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what we're getting from this operation.
No, it's a pretty broad territory,
Yeah.
but it's still interesting.
So I'm one of those. I like to go in and read the background, so I don't mind doing that. What's the how do you spell it?
Nordwind, Nord, wind.
Wind, Whiskey, India, November, Delta.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm learning so much about World War II.
Yeah, see, I watched way too many Nazi shows. So, like, yeah, why have I heard these before?
Yeah. Cool. All right.
So we do have the option to look at the rest of the military team. Do we want to spend a token to look at that? I don't think it would cost us any more time. It would just be a token at this point to
Right. I mean,
to look at that.
Doesn't hurt. I mean, we have
Yeah.
a plethora of tokens at the moment, so.
Yeah.
I don't mind looking that up.
No.
We do still have the unnamed soldier here as well, right?
Yes.
So in the first case, we did come across a picture that had Horatio Dawson, who is a key player in this, Coxswain, Nick Torn, who we're now learning about, and then there's a fourth soldier in that photo that just has question marks over his head. We don't know who that is.
Shall we?
Sure. So we're spending...
A computer
Okay.
attack.
Yes.
All right. Dawson's unit from his World War II deployment in Europe is definitely important to this case. Since you are already in the OMPF database, you decide to check out the remaining soldiers who appeared at various stages of this investigation. A few names come up: Horatio Dawson, Joshua Nicktorn, Jeremiah Coxon, Samuel Brown, and the unknown man, Russell Bradley.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So now we have 4 further leads. Some of them
Okay.
we've already taken a look at, like Samuel Brown, we definitely have.
Right.
Nick Torn. I don't think we've done Nick Torn yet.
First page.
Was
I think was one of the first leads we had in HQ.
Oh, 210 HQ, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to write that one down.
Yep.
Coxon, we've just been given. So the only one we have that's new is Russell Bradley.
Which is the
Yeah.
new person. Okay.
Exactly.
So we have a name to the face.
Wow, we got
That's a
some
start. All right. So that is the end of day 1. So to reset, time goes back to 8 a.m. Day marker goes up 1. And we would put the car back at headquarters because you always start your day at HQ. We reset our abilities. And also, we were 1 hour into overtime, so we do take 1 stress marker. And again, the stress limit for this case is 7, so we do not want to hit 7, otherwise our case ends immediately and we have to go to the questioning.
I don't know. I feel that day didn't give me enough satisfaction
Yeah.
going forward. But I'm sure we'll push forward and get there.
And I always like to remind myself, sometimes you fall down various rabbit holes. You're like, well, who was that person? What was that doing? Where did that come
That's
from?
me.
And what I like to do is pull it back in. What we are trying to do, the goal of the case, is discover who killed Horatio Dawson and collect the evidence for that. That is the primary. So at the end of the case, you're going to be given a series of questions. There are primary questions that are worth the most, secondary questions that are worth some points but nowhere near as much. And you're going to have to try and answer as many as you can, but you don't know what those questions are ahead of time. However, we know it is geared towards who killed Horatio Dawson and collecting the evidence thereof.
So this is normally where we take a little bit of a break. And then
Or as the rule book says, have some cookies.
have some cookies.
Yeah, do some stretches.
This is how I know Ignacy had some touch in that because loves cookies. So,
I'm okay with that.
Exactly. Have a stretch and then come back and do like a recap before we head into the second day.
Yeah.
So let's
Step away for a second.
just for a second and
breathe,
we'll come back.
collect our thoughts. All right.
Perfect. All right, we are on to day 2.
Day 2.
I feel like we did not learn very much in
No.
day 1, so I'm a
No.
little discouraged. But I think going forward, I'm hoping,
We have some time.
yeah, because now we've got a legitimate full day.
Yes. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
robbed of a couple hours there. And we need to focus, right? We're looking for
Yes.
how did Horatio Dawson die?
So maybe let's do a quick recap here. I feel like my brain is swimming a little bit. So right now, we're looking at, do we feel we have enough on the colonel and his backstory? Or do we feel we need to go into a bit deeper to find out some of these missing, the guys that were in the troop? Or do we kind of think that's a side off?
I think we need to get to the primary objective of the death of Horatio Dawson.
Right.
We know it's not Henry Giles. Who was it? How did it happen?
And the mechanic for doing that in the game right now is via the exhumation of Horatio Dawson.
Which would be good.
And that's a handy little piece of field work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is important.
Now, is there any other field work we can do along the way if we're already going to spend the hour to get into the field work?
I believe that's the only
Area.
field work that we have so far. The rest is all HQ.
Okay.
HQ and courthouse. So that is the only piece of field work available.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, we are at the beginning of the day, so if we do that route, then it gives us time to judge.
Yeah. Is there anything HQ related to Horatio Dawson right now? Just to focus on that.
Right.
There is Lexington, Virgil, and Bowl at HQ. There's further info into Colonel Samuel Brown at HQ. Coxon and Russell Bradley as well. So all of
more the
Horatio
units.
Dawson's units.
Right.
Yeah. And then the two at the courthouse are the file from the trial of Marcus Owens and the witness interviews from the hearing.
I think I'm worried that looking into the files for the troop will lead us to some speculation. It may give us a clue or two. I'm not saying we shouldn't look at it,
Yeah.
but I just don't know if we should focus too much on it right now.
No,
Agreed.
I think we should start going down the Horatio Dawson path.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking that sounds pretty good.
All right. Head out to some field work. We've had our theoretical cookies. And
Yeah.
although I didn't actually get any cookies. I should
Sorry,
have brought
I'm
cookies.
sorry.
should have
I
brought
can get us
cookies.
some cookies. I'm looking at some right now.
I'm totally kidding. Totally
I'll have
kidding.
to suffer with this Ricola.
All right. Go to field work.
I think we're good with that, everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's going to cost us an hour.
Yep.
And that's number 203.
203 in field work.
All right, here we go. All right, oops, there it goes. I actually feel refreshed after that little break, which is good. Alrighty. Oh, that's a big one. 3 hours. So, there we
Okay.
go.
So hopefully that also means good info.
It
Yeah.
better be for 3 hours. When you arrive, everything is ready to start the exhumation. The cemetery staff has been waiting. You sign the last few documents and give the green light to start digging. The procedures seem idiotic. You have to be present in person so that you can witness the opening of the grave. After less than 2 hours, the coffin is loaded into a special car and is transported to the laboratory with a special police escort. You can finally get back to meaningful work. Meanwhile, the cemetery is overwhelmed with journalists. The press is expecting a statement from cemetery management. The caretaker stops you as you get into the car and asks for someone from the agency to get in touch with the press and answer their questions. You confirm that managing the press is on you and move on. We can expend one of those bubble ... tokens to speak to the press. That will allow us to flip.
Okay.
Further leads supervise the necropsy at number 223, the lab. There's our options. Why do I feel like that didn't yield very much at the moment?
Not at the moment, but
Potentially
the
after.
lab is
I
gonna,
think the
yeah.
lab will definitely get us more.
I don't know what value there is in speaking to the press.
No.
Because, exactly. I definitely think the lab is
Yeah.
going
That's
to
our
yield
next
us some
step. Yeah.
results,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and with your ability, if we wanted to go back to the press, we
have
could.
that option. And that may come up later that we need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We also
because
have
we
other
don't
things.
have any other field work to do, I think the lab is our next step.
I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
To the lab!
To the lab.
All right, so we're off to the lab, spending an hour to get there.
Yep, and it's going to be number
223.
223. So this is going here.
Yep.
All right. The lab. Did you want to give that
Sure.
a read?
When you reach the lab, the coffin is already in place, surrounded by a team of criminologists, pathologists, technicians, assistants, and trainees. It's getting so crowded that Leslie McNabb, your consultant, The forensic anthropologist and the person responsible for the examination throws out half the people by shouting and waving sharp tools at them. I like her style.
Right?
Yes. Eventually, Howard Pine arrives, slightly late. He calms her down and they begin the examination. After thoroughly scanning and photographing the body, a toxicological examination is conducted. Material is conducted for a DNA identification. The state of the corpse indicates that the original autopsy was not completed. The blood group is also consistent with the victim.
Ah.
Further research depends on the team's involvement, and before I continue, this costs us an hour.
Oh, jeez.
So, we can spend a token to personally supervise the examination, and we do have further leads, but we must choose one of the following.
Oh.
We can spend an authority from the token pool to go to 226 the lab, or we can spend 3 from the token pool to take 226 and 226B from the lab.
Huh. The fact that it's so rich.
Yeah, I think we should push all things.
Yeah,
here.
because I mean, we
Yeah.
have tokens. There's no point in hanging on to them. We're nearing the end of the day.
Yeah.
So should we personally supervise to begin with?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that we should.
I think we push all things here.
Yeah, at this
Okay.
point, I mean, yeah.
All right. Before the corpse is taken away by a team of laboratory staff, you ask for a few minutes to conduct a forensic examination. You try to imagine Dawson, a powerful man fighting for his life. It's hard to believe that he died without a fight, without a struggle. You look at his fingers and you can see a slight crack in the nail, full of dirt. You summon a laboratory worker and bring this to his attention, asking for an analysis. A few years later, it turns out that you were right. Dawson defended himself and managed to scratch the attacker. You have the DNA.
Ah.
Nice.
So we have evidence. A blood sample from Horatio Dawson's nail, a drop of blood from the from the Rh negative group was isolated. So we have the DNA code, and we get to add 1 authority to the token pool.
Oh, see?
Okay,
Pretty
so
good, 'cause we're going to
Yeah.
spend some.
adding. One authority token.
1
Yeah,
authority
sweet.
token.
That's great.
So adding DNA. This is the first time we get to see this.
Yes.
We'll go over to
Yeah.
the data. All right. So DNA.
Excuse me.
You've got the 3 different types of signatures down the left side. First one would be fingerprints. Second one's DNA, and then material. So we go to DNA, and there are strings of 12 characters that you're going to enter for all of these different types of signatures, and you'll get potential matches or partial matches of things that already exist in the database or things that you've built into the database, and it allows you to put descriptions as well of your own.
You sit down with a cup of coffee and enter a query into the Enteri system. You're looking for information on Judge Robert Fortis, where he is living, whether he's still working, how to contact him, etc. After a moment, information begins filling the screen. You jot down the basic data in your notebook. Most important detail first, Judge Fortis died in May 2014. The rest of the information will require a few hours of reading. The computer brings up information about all the cases he heard throughout his career. The system lists his judgments, rulings, and every other detail related to his work. It's a bit overwhelming at first. While the Ontario's computers extract and search the data from the Richmond courts, you check Judge Fortis's public life on your laptop. You find a few of his interviews and photos. You browse random headlines, hoping that you'll stumble onto something interesting. What catches your eye is that his son, Michael Fortis, is a very successful businessman in the steel and paper industries. His company, Fortis Industries, has acquired several contracts from the Department of Defense. We will get allowed to flip this over at no cost. Further leads, sniff around Fortis Industries 233 headquarters. And then there's also calling Michael Fortis at 206 headquarters. So call Michael Fortis 206 HQ. Okay. And then we were able to do that afterward.
All right. What do we got on the backside?
Oh, that's with the cards.
Another business card, but it is a different company, so
True.
it's new information. Sort of. We have an address, we have a phone number.
Well, we have about an hour in this day, but it looks like we might have to start plugging along here. Might have to take some
Did something ring a bell there for you?
Yeah,
Oh, shit. Okay.
I wanted to check Michael Slater's notes again because they were pretty cryptic. Young, probably military, caring for vets. We have the guy and his son who died had it's Russell Bradley and Ernest Bradley. Were working for the Veterans
Right.
Care
As well.
organization. So I don't know what that's with regards to, but we have potentially a match for that.
Okay.
What are we thinking?
Do you want to just read a report and wrap it up? Or go into
Writing a
routine?
report would get us 2 more of these.
Yeah,
And then you can start spending going forward.
yeah.
I'm okay with that. Yeah?
I agree.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so
So we're going to end day 3 by writing a report that again would normally get you 1 authority, but with my ability
yes, gets us.
will get us 2. Do we want to, so that's my ability used, do we want to use your ability and flip one of these into a wild?
Yeah, I guess just
Right,
to
it
Yeah,
doesn't-
having the wild
It
is,
doesn't hurt to do it.
Exactly, it
It
gives
just
you
more flexibility.
Exactly, which I think
Okay.
is great. And then mine, if we decide we haven't, we can come back to that.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right.
Alright,
So then
so-
that would have used yours, but then we reset our abilities.
So we're gonna end. That's ending
8 a.m. day
we're into
4.
Day 4. So let's
Take a
stop
break.
there. Yep.
Cookie break.
Cookie break.
Woo!
So we are at day 4. So let's reconvene here.
Halfway
and-
point.
Halfway. More than half. Actually, more than halfway.
Well, we've done 3 days. We have 3 days left, right?
that's
true.
4, 5, and
Yeah.
6.
So we're just starting.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like I feel like I don't know much.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
spinning our wheels in some aspects, but
But I think maybe Susan's recommended something, and I think that might be a good way to go. Give
Yeah.
us maybe a bit more
Yeah.
insight.
We all felt that this situation involving the Colonel and Corporal Nick Torn and the sniper smelled a little bit. So we do have the option, because we have Chris Stone and his special power, to go back and dig deeper into a card after we've already passed it by. So I think we might invoke that at this point in time.
I think that's wise.
so normally you wouldn't be able to do that. With that ability, we can. To trigger that ability,
So we
I'll
need.
give you that. We
Yep.
have to spend 1 authority and the corresponding token on the card, which we don't have, but we have jokers that are wild. So we'll use that. Running low on tokens.
All right.
What do we got?
Alrighty, so we are going to analyze reports on Nick Torn's death. You read Nick Torn's file with Delaware, and almost simultaneously you look at each other. There is information about a private who died during service with Corporal Coxon. Give me all the information you can get on this supposed sniper who killed Nick Torn, says Delaware. I have to go to the next meeting with my green binder. Keep me updated.
There's that green
you
binder
add
again.
that?
I totally added that.
Oh, I was gonna say, really? Look, I literally wrote down green. Wait a minute.
So just for a bit of backstory, in the first case, it kept mentioning his green binder, and then there was a green car and a green lamp, and we kept anything green. We pointed it out, and joking about having green donuts. And I was saying off camera that we should actually make that a drinking game anytime that the green binder. Have a drink.
Waiting for the green dossier
Way
to
to
show
add
up.
in green binder. That was very believable.
I was
Okay.
No, it really
wondering if
was.
they'd
Well done.
pick up on it. You dive into the military archives. You researched German troop movements and skirmishes looking for any similar cases of shooting on duty in this area. You determined that the German forces had been inactive in that area for several days. It was a migration route for refugees. Nothing had happened there. You continue searching for information about the sniper. Who captured him? What happened to him? The reports, however, lack any details. There is simply no information on how the sniper was dealt with. You compare the report of Colonel Samuel Brown with the information and data you've assembled. At first glance, everything fits, but Antares identifies inaccuracies between the documents. You see comparison of every report on the screen. In a few places, the details on the attack of the German sniper do not coincide with the date of Nick Torn's death. Perhaps he died a bit later. Elsewhere, the report gives a date that suggests the attack occurred after the private's death. Mistakes like this did happen at the end of the war. Sure, everyone was thinking about going home. They weren't worried about writing reports, but still, ... Add one authority to the token pool.
Ooh.
Okay, well.
That means we might be on the right
Yeah,
track here.
I think so. So, good suggestion there.
But it doesn't take us
It
anywhere.
doesn't take us anywhere.
For now.
We
but
were
that's-
already suspicious.
Right,
Yeah.
it just seemed wrong. But
It just
now
confirms
we
the
need to,
suspicions, but
Yeah.
doesn't...
Does that mean we need to now go back and check into the friends or the
Check into Coxon. We haven't
Coxon?
looked at
Yeah,
Coxon
that's
at all.
Yeah, maybe that's what we
Because
need to do.
he was with Sanders and Nick Torn on the front.
Right, this is what I'm saying. I'm thinking we
Yeah.
might have to investigate if we want to get more on that. But are any of these interconnected?
No, I don't know if we have... I'm not saying I know how we can get to that.
Okay. Horatio Dawson attacked Colonel Brown because Horatio accused the colonel of killing one of his troop mates.
Right.
So that seems like this
I
is...
think that's why we
it
might
could be
wanna-
tied.
Okay.
Right. At least there's some motivation
Yeah.
or some
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
That's the only reason why, is because there seems to be still some connection.
So, Coxon next then?
yeah. What,
215.
15.
And that's
That's
headquarters,
at
and
headquarters.
that's where
That's
we are. so
3
that's good.
hours.
Boom.
It's a juicy one. All right, here we go. Here we go. Accessing the military records of Jeremiah Coxon was tedious, but that was only the beginning. You put a string of queries into Antares and set the system to search the archives for answers: where he lived, where he worked, what happened to him after the war, whether he had any problems with the law, how much tax he paid, did he travel a lot. Two machines busily crunch the data while you look at the headlines and download the most interesting results and records to your laptop. They are instantly shared with all the team members at the same time. After the war, Coxon moved to Maryland, and in 1946 he founded the Wee Trans Transport Company. Nearly 10 years later, he also established the Veteran Protection Security Agency based in Richmond. His private life seemed calm, even boring. In March 1946, he married Rita Holloway. They had one child, Gregory Coxon, born a year after the wedding. Today, Jeremiah Coxon has very serious health issues and resides in a clinic, so talking to him is going to be difficult. Read name at Jeremiah Coxon. Add one authority to the token pool. And we have the little cloud ...
Okay.
Try and reach Jeremiah Coxon.
Okay.
Then we have We Trans Company, further leads.
Yep.
We Trans Company 232 headquarters. I
think
that
we already
came
have
up.
that.
Right.
Yes.
Veteran Protections 235 HQ.
Yes.
Info about Gregory Coxon 212 HQ. Yeah, so info about Gregory Coxon 212 HQ.
And
Nope.
what am I looking up?
Oh, Jeremiah Coxon.
Do we have him yet? Again, going back to the original question, we know it was the ashtray. We have partial prints. Well, let's say it is, hypothetically, one of the Coxon Tall family.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have? We have DNA, right? What was the DNA from?
Underneath Horatio's fingernails.
Right.
Blood type.
Uh-huh.
underneath his fingernails. That was like one of the first things, right? Maybe one of the
Who was the person
block
again?
cards?
That was at the exhumation, and then we supervised the
right.
necropsy.
Right.
Here's the card number for the...
Yeah, so it's 226 and 226B.
In the lab, that would make sense. Maya Coxon is B negative.
Yeah, somebody is an O. No, that was Owen, I think.
Gregory Coxon is an O negative.
Yes.
Aha!
Did it right there.
And he's the right height.
Yeah.
And he's a well-known politician. Oh, it goes deep.
Well, we can look more into Gregory Coxon.
Do it. Yeah.
212.
Actually, hold on.
Wait, we're
Before
gonna
you do
go
it,
into overtime,
yeah,
so-
we should probably go to the next day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm cool with the next day, but yeah, this is...
Okay. So 1 hour it's going to cost us at headquarters. You connect with Rep Coxon's office and ask to speak with him about an urgent matter. After a dozen or so minutes, his spokeswoman Winona Whitemore calls back. Of course, Mr. Coxon will be happy to help the FBI in any matter. Please contact me by email. You know for sure that tabloids are just waiting for the congressman's photos with FBI agents. He cannot meet you personally without damage to his reputation or generating rumors. Thank you for your understanding. I am waiting for an email. Bye. To summon Coxon to Antares, you will need strong arguments. So we have some further leads. Whitemore's attorneys, 229 at headquarters. And spend 5 authority from the token pool to call Coxon in. To call him in. 214 headquarters.
So I'd have to use write a report.
Yep.
We're down to
Yep.
4, so that would give us enough.
That
So
would.
we could write a report and then pull the trigger on
Pull
that.
it, and I as well. I mean, if they're spending
That's a lot of
5,
authority.
Yeah, but that means he's probably got a either that or it's a
Or
ruse.
it's a trap. Yeah.
It's a ruse. But how many people are going to have 5?
Yeah.
Not very many. Your call.
I think we have to. We're digging this far
Well-
into him.
Yeah.
We heavily suspect him at this point.
So you're going to have to use your.
You're good?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
If
So
they're going to lead us all this way to make us blow 5 tokens
Well.
on a...
Might as well.
So I'm using my ability. That gets us 2 tokens, and then we're going to spend 5 of the 6 that we have and pray that gets us somewhere.
All right. What's the number on that?
That is 214. Oh boy.
Like, this is just what is happening. I heard this one was tough though. All right. So this is going to cost us 2 hours.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So 1 hour. 1 hour was for
sorry.
writing the report,
Yes.
and then
And
2
now-
hours will put us 1 and 2
Okay,
overtime.
well, that's not
which
bad.
is still fine.
Not
Yeah,
the
yeah.
worst.
No.
Yeah, it could be. Ooh, all right. Some things happening afterward.
Uh-oh.
No, it's good. It's good. A half hour before the meeting, you open up the conference room, plug in the equipment, and check all the systems. You are certain that this will be a very important hearing, and the Antares system needs to operate at 100% of its capabilities. While you're testing the systems, the door opens and Delaware enters. You see on your screen that he is logged in as well. He bumps the temperature up by a couple degrees and then turns off the controller to the air conditioning. The room quickly becomes stifling. Let them sweat, he smiles. They won't be so confident. Gregory Coxon arrives precisely at the appointed time in the company of Winona Whitemore and a bodyguard. Delaware takes his time with a pre-interview that runs extremely long. Finally, the interrogation begins. Read questioning at 214. Going into day 6, the final day. Are we excited?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we're finally
We've dug this
progressing.
deep. I think we're getting somewhere here.
All right, so what are
To
we
the
gonna-
lab.
To the lab.
It's time for our BM. The big move here is
Yeah.
going to examine the evidence in the lab.
Yeah.
All right.
Good. Going to the lab.
Yep, there we go.
1 hour to get there.
All right. Now I'm assuming that means flip,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then we just pay. I guess if there's any time we
Yeah.
need to pay out. 2 hours.
All right. Worth it, right?
So this is 216B. Interesting. All right. Well, better be after that.
Yes.
When a lab technician comes in, you give him the bag with the glass and explain that this time it really is quite urgent. And
For
certainly
reals.
is. Yes, you really do need the results of this analysis immediately. The man promises to do everything he can, puts the glass in a box, and returns to the laboratory. The panel display confirms the item has been accepted for analysis. You wait downstairs in the cafeteria drinking coffee and wondering what the research results will turn up. Finally, you receive a notification that the results are ready. You head back to pick them up. Evidence. Glass with dactyloscopic and DNA traces used during interrogation of Gregory Coxon.
Fingerprints,
which
yo.
we were totally lasering in on. Tall. Clear fingerprints as well as saliva particles were collected. Fingerprints and DNA were isolated. So SD.
Alright, so we've got fingerprints.
Yeah, we do.
All right. So,
What do we got?
Kilo, Lima, Echo, Romeo, 7, Sierra. All right, and there's a dash. What's that there? So we have HJPATE.
HJP.
P as in Papa.
Yep.
Alpha Tango Echo. All right. Go ahead there.
Sure.
Yep. SDNA.
Ha, matching evidence.
Matching evidence.
Ha!
Fingerprints of Gregory
Oh,
Coxon at
hello.
the crime scene. Arrest Gregory Coxon. End case 2 right now and go to the final report, or continue playing to find more evidence. So, yeah, that's an 89% match on
nice.
the paper shreds from the
Yeah,
typewriter.
Yeah.
86% match fingerprints on the brass ashtray. Yeah,
Oh, look at that. When we hit home, we hit home.
Yeah.
he is all over
hard.
it. All right,
Did you want to enter the
Well, maybe
the
just-
DNA?
Yeah, it's just so we have
there's
it.
more.
There's
There's
more.
a DNA.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have
yeah.
DNA in this
We're gonna
case.
need this stuff in the database
Right.
anyway. So,
Yeah.
and also when it comes down to final scoring for the case, you get points as well for all the information that you've
Yeah.
entered into
Right,
the
so
database.
might as well take it.
Okay,
Papa Lima, Tango Tango, Yankee 3, Hotel Alpha, Delta 3, 4 Delta.
matching evidence, DNA traces of Gregory
Booyah.
Coxon on the victim's body.
yeah.
Arrest Gregory Coxon, end case 2 right now, or continue playing to find more evidence. Sweet.
we have the time,
Bam,
but-
92%.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty
That
cool.
was worth all the time it took to get there. That was a few days, but
But no, we got
We
there.
got
And come
there.
on, as soon as that came up, it did seem we totally knew something was not right.
like I said, fingerprints.
Well,
Show me
especially
fingerprints.
when, you know what comment to me that made it stand out? Reminds not to talk on the phone. Something happened before.
Okay, well, we have time. There's
Yeah,
no
that's what I'm
point
saying,
in
we
going
might
to
as
the
well.
overtime.
No, but if we have the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to investigate. You know,
What
you mentioned
other
the
evidence
judge. You
could
had
we
mentioned some
find?
other things.
Did you want to read about that WeTrans? Because that's
Oh,
Coxon's,
maybe
the family.
even for future.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's 232
at
HQ.
headquarters. So we're
Yeah.
gonna have to move back.
1 hour.
All right, this is 1 hour, so it's not too bad.
Okay.
In the early 1950s, WeTrans was a small company with several delivery trucks. A few years later, the company grew into a large transport company with property counted in hundreds of thousands of dollars. On the company's website, somewhere near the bottom, you find the Public Information Bulletin tab, something that often provides detailed information that nobody wants to read. It shows that WeTrans was founded in 1946 by Corporal Jeremiah Coxon, who served during World War II in the 7th U.S. Army. In 1965 to 2003, Gregory Coxon, Jeremiah's son, sat on the company's board. Since 2003, the company has been managed by Gregory's daughter, Roberta Coxon. Oh, well, that's interesting. Further leads. Information on Jeremiah Coxon, which I think we have already, 209
Yes.
headquarters. Information on Gregory Coxon, 212 headquarters. Information on Roberta Coxon, 222 headquarters.
Yeah, Roberta's new.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
information
very
on Roberta Coxon, 222 headquarters. And then we can flip it. We trans.
It's a
Another business
happy
card.
robot.
Yeah. Okay. So we
Okay,
gotta
so
spend
it
that.
would be, and because we're using your ability, so that would be your ability, we have to spend an authority token along with it.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my. All right. You run out to the corridor, catching Coxon and Whitemore in front of the elevator. You see that his lawyer is already opening her mouth in protest, so you raise your hands in a peaceful gesture. Off the record, please. Just one more thing. I'm listening.
So we're going Columbo here, are we?
Yeah, exactly.
Just one more
There's
thing.
one more thing. I'm listening, says Coxon, furious. He's clearly had enough of this whole interrogation. Do the names Bluthels or Buckman mean anything to you? No, nothing, he replies. Did your father mention anything about his colleagues from the war? What happened to his team? He was reluctant to talk about the war. I only know that he and Dawson served together with a few others, Nick Torn, Bradley, and Brown. Did your father say anything about them? He did say a few things. Nick Torn was supposedly stabbed somewhere in Italy, and Brown probably died in the 80s. Has your father had any contact with him? The elevator doors open. Whitemore cuts you short. That's it. We're done here. They ride down and leave the building. You head back to the conference room.
That was a lot more than one more thing.
Yeah, I would agree.
That was a lot of questions.
Then there are some further leads. Information on Nick Torn, 210 headquarters. Information on Brown, 227 headquarters. And information on Bradley, 221. Which I think we...
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got
Nothing
all
new
of those.
there.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now we still have 3 more hours.
And no tokens.
No
Not a
tokens,
one.
but we could move somewhere potentially. Where
Yeah.
else? You had mentioned a judge, or is there somewhere? I mean, at this point, it's really just trying to. I don't think we have anywhere to analyze evidence.
Okay, so there's 2 things at the courthouse, but regarding the Marcus Owens trial, there is the veteran protections and the Whitemore attorney lady to look at it at HQ. Fortis Industries, and we could call Michael Fortis, who is the judge.
Right.
The police report from the girlfriend's accident, which I think is completely tangential.
Yeah.
That's at Richmond. And Roberta Coxon. And I'm not sure that her father being a murderer makes her
Right.
interesting at all.
Yeah. Okay. We've got the main punchline
Right.
Yeah.
for the primary questions now. Is there anything that might lead us to further information about Michael, who was a police officer that died in the first case that I think is the overarching story that we're looking for here? More info on that?
235.
235.
And we're already at headquarters, so that's
Yep.
fine.
That's the last card. So, 1 hour.
Okay, so we still have
sorry.
more time.
Another coffee. You wonder if it's actually getting better or if you're simply getting used to this sludge. You put queries into the system and wait. The Antares computer, a powerful machine with database that could possibly allow you to rule the world, delivers information about veteran protection. There isn't much. A security agency that employs, in the vast majority, ex-policemen and soldiers. Established in 1962 in Richmond, the agency was opened by Jeremiah Coxon. The executive director from 1966 to 1968 was his son Gregory Coxon, but he resigned from his function to pursue a political career. The majority of the shares in veteran protections are held by law office in New York, Lexington, Virgil, and Bowl Limited. Add 1 token, 1 authority token to the pool. And
So it's the right way, but
there's some further leads, but I believe we did this already. Information on Jeremiah, Gregory, and on Lexington, Virgil, and Bowl Limited.
Yep.
And that was 228. Okay.
I'm just going to grab some
Yep.
of those dates.
And then when you're done too, you can flip it.
okay.
Okay.
Come on, business card.
Oh my gosh, if it's another business card, I'm
Well,
going to
you
start
know
to
it's
feel like
gonna
there's a
be.
puzzle or something that we are just not getting. Because that's insane.
If you collected 5 business cards, bonus point. Gotta get them all. We have a duplicate. That's no good. We'll have to trade that to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yes!
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like there's a trend here. Like, what is happening? Why are we getting all these business cards? Well, I guess we're technically just questioning and collecting info. Maybe that's part of it. Collecting the business cards.
Oh, the business cards.
That's a sweet collection.
I had
1,
actually
2, 3,
forgotten
4.
that was what we were expecting to see. I'm so disappointed.
So we have 2 hours. We can call it a night, or we can...
What else is at HQ? We don't want to go over
Right.
because
Yeah.
every point of stress is minus points at the end of the game.
Right.
Roberta Coxon. Fortis Industries, Michael Fortis. And the attorney Whitemore. And that's it.
Wait, more?
Sure.
Yep.
All right.
229.
229. All right. So we're still at headquarters.
Yep.
So this
Yep.
is, guess what? 2 hours. Nicely
Sweet.
done.
Quitting time, am I right?
Oh, goodness. All right. You sit at your desk with a sandwich, coffee, and your laptop to start checking information about Whitemore Attorneys. The firm was founded in 1983 by Winona Whitemore. In 1992, it was bought by Lexington Virgil and Bowl Limited, and today regularly performs tasks on their behalf. Usually cases where exposing the legal base of a giant corporation could discourage or scare customers, and a more friendly face is needed. You enter the name Winona Whitemore into the database and start to look through the results. Interesting person. She's regularly involved in the circles of Democratic politicians and apparently is quite fierce and ruthless. The results and the price list of her services are a testimony to her effectiveness. She appears in several of the most famous recent cases. Her last public appearance, which you find on YouTube, was a few months ago. A press statement that the Coxon family published about the health of retired veteran and businessman Jeremiah Coxon. And I think you got all these info on Jeremy Coxon, Gregory Coxon, and then the Lexington Virgil and Bowl.
Yep.
Okay.
Business card. Other side.
Yeah. Yes!
Woo!
That's 5, right?
Whitemore Attorneys.
There's no bonus
692
points for collecting
Hood
5.
Avenue.
But we got there.
Wow. We got all the cards. All the cards.
Woohoo!
There's a trend. All right. Well,
Right.
we've reached the end.
We have. Okay. Shall we go to the final countdown? I'm sorry I did that. All right. Final report. You ready?
All right.
Ready.
Finish your game first. Are you ready to see and answer questions for case number 2, the soldier with a heart of gold?
Yes.
Here we go. Final report. During the investigation, our team has determined that Horatio Dawson was murdered by Jeremiah Coxon, Gregory Coxon, Richard Briggs, Stanley O'Brown. We don't know. Now, when it comes down to final scoring, these are the primary sets of questions. There'll be another set of questions secondary to the main story. The primary questions are worth the most, secondary questions worth less. If you answer that you don't know, it's 0 points for the score. If you guess and guess incorrectly, you actually get negative points. So if you really don't know,
Okay.
you're better off not guessing because you're going to get negative points for an incorrect answer.
But in this case, we know. We know.
All right, so Gregory,
Yeah.
Gregory.
Gregory.
we have also concluded that Horatio Dawson was killed because he was threatening to blackmail someone, he was at his home during a robbery, he was attempting a hostile takeover, he was having an affair. Do we know what?
Oh, I don't know if I know that. Well,
Could it be blackmail? Because
I would-
Gregory took
yeah.
the $10,000 out.
that's
I would
right.
think blackmail.
And Dawson needed the money.
Yeah, the other ones don't fit. Like
Yeah.
the fair.
He was at home during a robbery, but that
Yeah.
was not the reason
No.
he was killed.
No. Huh.
We
Interesting.
don't know for sure, but blackmail seems to fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And the assault as well.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's what I would put. This is.
But don't guess. You can go with hunches, right?
Sure.
All right. Educated guessing. What's more, the police investigation into the murder was carried out incompletely due to the influence of the Veteran Protections Company, Fortis Industries Company, Get Force Company, or the Whitemore Attorneys Company.
I don't think we can convincingly say that any of those.
Do you know why Samuel Brown dropped charges against Horatio Dawson? He didn't want anyone to dig into his past. He had a soft spot for Dawson.
Huh.
He was preoccupied with selling his company, Get Force.
I have a feeling it's probably closer to the first one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't want anyone digging into his past.
Because wasn't he accused of like bribery and all this jazz? But are we comfortable to say that, or do we think we should put I don't know? If that's an option.
No, I think that's the most likely.
That's from what you just read. That to me sounds the most logical. But
Yeah. Great job, 31 out of 53.
we have to put our overtime.
Final report points. So yes, stress tokens,
Just
1.
the one. This was an interesting one.
We only got one of the 4 additional questions.
Okay, well we did pretty decent, but
Case solved. That's the main point. So final report points,
Huh.
12 out of 19. Additional questions, 1 out of 4.
Ah.
Matching evidence, 18 out of 30.
Yeah.
yeah, so we definitely missed a couple opportunities there.
Closing the case.
All right, but I mean, for the most part, we got what we were going for. Got the information.
Outstanding. Delaware takes the report from your hand. Let's go through it together, shall we? First of all, the death of Mr. Dawson. Now, looking at this final report, anything that has that highlight in the blue is confirmed that we got that correct. Anything that is in red is something we missed. So, the death of Mr. Dawson. You believe he was murdered by Gregory Coxon. He had the motive and an opportunity. He surprised Dawson. Indeed, that is most certainly what happened. My own investigation and parallel analysis of your findings leaves no room for doubt. Horatio Dawson was murdered by Gregory Coxon. All evidence points to him. I will request that the police arrest him. That is certainly going to be a huge story in the media. We are going to need the skills of the best prosecutor Richmond has to offer, Isabel Wedford. In the meantime, let's prepare the best case we can for her. We need to determine the murderer's motive. You think that it was blackmail, that Dawson was threatening the murderer in some way, and that ultimately led to his death. That seems most likely. It may not be immediately clear, but I believe Dawson knew something that was a threat to the Coxon family, or to be more precise, their reputation. A young, ambitious politician felt especially threatened. He felt blackmailed and decided to act. He probably didn't plan to murder Dawson, most likely just bribe him, silence him. But he must have changed his mind. However, the most peculiar thing about this case is the following investigation, or rather, the lack thereof. Unfortunately, you were unable to determine which company may have dabbled in Dawson's case. I think that Veterans Protections was present in Richmond at that time. Coxon
Yeah.
Jr. was the owner, so he probably recruited a couple of loyal operatives, both Army veterans that were police officers. He must have used his money and influence to close this case quickly. Well done, detectives. Thanks to you, a dangerous man will face justice. Grab something to drink tonight, will you? You leave Delaware's office, exit the building, and reach your favorite pub. A few hours later, the news broke. All of the TV stations are reporting that Gregory Coxon was arrested for murder. A few moments later, Antares is mentioned. You feel proud, but deep down you know that this is just the beginning of a long and tough trial. Your job, however, is done. Huzzah!
All right.
There we go.
So
That's the end of case 2.
it was veteran protection then.
Yeah,
And I was
think
wondering
so.
because of the police, they hired ex-policemen and ex-soldiers.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Oh, it's okay. We were on the
We
right
couldn't
track.
draw that line.
We still solved
This
it.
is it.
We solved the case.
So yeah, so solve the case. I mean,
Closed.
yeah, I feel it definitely was a different vibe than the initial case that we had done, and it's just like trying to pull that evidence, which is what they asked for, but we solved it. So, I mean, I can't complain.
Yeah.
So
I am curious what evidence we're missing out there.
yeah.
And that's the thing. You can't go digging through the rest of the cards because this does continue on, and we'll have access to everything that we've looked at. So we only looked at the A side of those 3 cards. I will go over to the overhead so you can see what I'm pointing to. All right. So we only looked at the A side of those 3 cards. We're not allowed to look at the back side, but we will still have access to the front. And then, of course, everything that we looked at in case 1 and 2 we'll have access to as well. Yeah.
I think that
Good job.
covers it. Yay!
Yep.
Team.
High five. Yes.
Nobody got hit in the face. That's a win.
Yeah, right, exactly. We're doing the team thing. All right, well, I think that's it. And hopefully we didn't spoil too much if people were watching, but it gives you a bit of flavor of the game if you're just interested. So, yeah, hopefully we'll be back with another playthrough soon. I think that's good.
Good to be back at the table.
Yes, exactly. So we'll see everyone soon.
All right. Get 4s!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.